We're just going to move location now, but another trouble spot, which is the very rough neighbourhood of the Middle East, getting rougher, it seems, by the minute, by the hour. Tom Gross is an international affairs commentator. He specialises in the Middle East. And he joins us now as Israeli officials are gearing up for a possible assault by Iran via Hezbollah. Tom Gross, thank you so much for coming on again. Is this all in reaction and retaliation for the assassination of the Hamas chief political officer, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran, at that surgical strike we saw on Wednesday?
Well, yes, ostensibly, although we have to remember that because the Gaza war has swallowed up most of the media attention in Britain and the West, there have actually been rockets fired from Lebanon by Hezbollah, which are a militia controlled from Tehran, every day. Dozens, on some occasions even hundreds of rockets have been targeted at civilian areas in Israel. Last week, 12 children were killed playing soccer. The media, by the way, misreported that, calling them young people, and then they call them teenagers. Most of them were younger than teenagers. The majority were aged 10, 11, and 12.
And they were Druze, largely, too.
They were Druze, but Israeli citizens. And, the north of Israel has various minority populations. So there's a big difference. Hezbollah targets civilian areas. Israel targets terrorists or militants. And as we saw with Haniyeh, the Hamas head who was assassinated in Tehran, Israel hasn't actually taken responsibility, but nor has it denied it very strongly. And I think most people know that it was almost certainly Israel. Not a single other person was harmed apart from his bodyguard, by the way. It was like a surgical assassination in the most secure area in Tehran. So it was quite from an intelligence point of view, it was quite a remarkable act. But yes, the whole of Israel is sort of on tenterhooks this evening. It's the calm before the storm. Iran and Hezbollah are promising something very severe. So people are ready to run to the bomb shelters.
Sorry, did you say Iran and Hezbollah are promising?
Yes,
so Iran has said it will retaliate in some form.
Well, it's not clear how they will retaliate. Iran has said that, and in fact, the foreign minister of Jordan made a very rare trip to Tehran today, met the acting foreign minister of Iran, pleaded with Iran not to strike Israel, but was rebuffed by the foreign minister of Iran. And it's not, I should point out, Iran has several proxies. They have the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, some militias in Iraq and Syria. It could be a 7-pronged attack of rockets on Israel tonight, which is why the US have moved various warships and other defensive military into the region to try and shoot down incoming missiles, because no one wants to spark a major war. And of course, if Hezbollah, I mention Hezbollah in particular because they have up to 150,000 very tough rockets with heavy payloads, harder than Hamas have. And of course, they're right over the border from Israel and Lebanon. So therefore, in a way, Hezbollah are a bigger threat than Iran itself.
You said nobody wants to spark a sort of multi-faceted or multi-front war, but this is exactly what Israel did by targeting a terrorist in another capital, in the capital city of Iran, and knowing, as it did so, that it's not just terrorists that Israel has on its kill list, but Israel as a country is on Iran's kill list. So a very provocative and possibly very dangerous move on the part of Israel.
Well, Israel would say quite the opposite. It's Hamas that are targeting Israel. It's Hamas that have launched this war. There is a war on. Haniyeh was not some political officer. He was the equivalent of Osama bin Laden. He has been responsible for orchestrating suicide bomb attacks and all kinds of other attacks for 25 years. I'm not a military strategist, so I'm not going to judge the wisdom of it. I think Israel also wanted to send a message to the Iranian regime that it has the capability to act within Iran, because at the present time, Iran attacks Israel through its proxy militia, mainly Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis in Yemen, but Iran itself is untouched. And I think in the end, the thinking in Jerusalem is that if the Iranians, if there's no deterrence brought towards the Iranians themselves, they will continue to threaten Israel's existence. And I think Israel was quite careful not to harm any Iranians when Haniyeh was killed. In fact, he was on the second floor of quite a large building, and I understand there were Iranian Revolutionary Guards on the floor above and the floor below, and Israel very carefully didn't harm anybody else. So I don't want to judge the right and wrongs of such a thing, but I wouldn't say it's the initial...
No, I just said it was provocative given the array of hostile actors that surround Israel and proxy.
The alternative is to appease. The alternative is to
appease the terrorists.
Right?
Two quick questions, Tom Grace.
Yeah.
Two quick questions. Is Israel's Iron Dome sufficient to deflect attacks, rockets, not just from Hezbollah, but from all sides? And two, will Israel ever engage and Iran ever engage more directly?
Well, firstly, it's not just the Iron Dome. They also have something called the Iron Sling. They have the Arrow 2, the Arrow 3, and something in development called the Iron Beam. So they've got 5 different kinds of world-class missile defense. But in mid-April, when the Iranian regime sent 350 Shahed suicide drones and ballistic and cruise missiles, America, Britain, and Jordan helped shoot down about half of those. I should point out that Saudi Arabia, even though it doesn't have official relations with Israel, also assisted behind the scenes. He assisted Israel to prevent those Iranian rockets. Israel shot down the other half of those 350. There was one girl injured by falling debris. So to answer the question, I'm not sure whether Israel has enough, but they're certainly trying to. I think the Americans and British will help again. About a direct war, I don't think the Iranian regime wants a direct war because its first priority is to complete its nuclear weapons program, and a direct war could trigger events in which ordinary Iranians who are anti-regime, and that means millions of people, could use that as an attempt to make a counter-revolution, try and overthrow the government. So I think the Iranians are going to attack Israel, possibly even tonight, using Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, but it will be carefully limited in a way not to spark a bigger war. Of course, Israel's also in a very difficult position because once Iran has a nuclear arsenal, they will be a much bigger threat than they already are, and they're already a big threat even now.
Thank you so much, Tom Gross, for bringing us up to date on the rapidly moving developments in the Middle East.